Hello, welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the southeast this Wednesday evening. Jurors hear that the man accused of murdering Kent PCSO Julia James was filmed carrying his weapon the day after she was killed.
The new inquest into the 1980 death of Sussex art student Jessie Earl hears about DNA tests for links to 2 serial killers.
Also this evening, e-scooters are staying on the streets of Canterbury, but some disability charities say they're dangerous.
And back in training, ready for this weekend's Moonwalk. Thousands prepare for a cancer charity's first event since the pandemic. Good evening. A jury has been told that the man accused of murdering Kent PCSO Julia James was filmed carrying the weapon in a bag the day after she was killed.
Canterbury Crown Court was shown dashcam video of 22-year-old Callum Wheeler walking in fields close to where Mrs James was found dead. The footage was one of multiple pieces of photographic evidence produced by the prosecution today. Tony Green was in court.
This is the moment gamekeeper Gavin Tucker came face to face with a killer. The day after Julia James was killed whilst out walking her dog, Callum Wheeler is spotted nearby. The witness, who gave evidence in court today, stops his Land Rover and challenges him. The 53-year-old PCSO had been killed a day earlier in Ackholt Wood, something that the driver knew. In the conversation that followed, Wheeler says he's lost and new to the area, gesturing he'd come from the area where Julia had been killed, now a crime scene. Wheeler then turns away and goes into Aylsham Wood. The driver dials 999 and reports a suspicious male. Before Wheeler left him, the driver has taken a photo. He took the photograph because he knew that Callum Wheeler was lying. He knew that he wasn't new to the area because he'd seen him twice on the same day the previous September, and approached him and asked him what he was doing in a field on the farm where he worked. He also alerted a colleague to Callum Wheeler, who took this photograph of Callum Wheeler on the corner of the road where Julia James lived. In court today, jurors were told that several witnesses spotted Callum Wheeler in the area before, after and on the day Julia James was killed. Several descriptions reported him as carrying a black and blue bag with something protruding from it. Camera footage shows Wheeler heading in the direction of Ackholt Wood before Julia James was killed, and then in the direction of his home after she was killed. An e-fit Julia's husband made after Julia's death and before Wheeler's arrest of the really weird dude she saw in the woods closely resembles the defendant, the prosecution alleges. The final witness today was the PCSO, who was the first on the scene after Julia James's body was discovered. The juror was shown the body-worn video that the PCSO was wearing as she approaches Julia James's body, which is lying face down on the ground. She says twice, "Hello, can you hear me?" and then reports her presence to the incident room and says she's not going to touch the body because she thinks it's suspicious. The previous week, the witness was one of the PCSOs who attended Wheeler's home after he made an abandoned 999 call. He insisted the lights in the home were turned off before he came to the door, and then went on to mock the officers, saying they weren't real police.
Callum.
Well, hang on a minute, why am I even talking to you? Go on, get lost.
Because you phoned us,
Go
Callum.
on, get lost, mate.
The Defence Counsel didn't have any questions for any of the 3 witnesses today. They don't dispute any of the facts that were put before jurors today. Callum Wheeler doesn't deny killing Julia James, but he denies that it was murder. The trial continues. Tony Green, ITV News, Canterbury Crown Court.
A fresh inquest into the death of a Sussex art student in the 1980s has heard there are no links to 2 high-profile serial killers, Peter Tobin and David Fuller.
Jessie Earl was found in undergrowth with no clothes except for a knotted bra. The original inquest recorded an open verdict. The new coroner said today that her parents had suffered a substantial injustice. Joe Coshett is live for us outside Eastbourne Coroner's Court this evening. And Joe, pretty major developments today.
Yes, absolutely, Matt. This is the first time, in fact, that both David Fuller and Peter Tobin have been discussed publicly in relation to the Jessie Earl case. Retired Detective Superintendent Emma Heater from Sussex Police told the Coroner's Court today that DNA taken from Jessie's parents was checked against the serial killer Peter Tobin and David Fuller, but provided no DNA matches. She said specifically when David Fuller's crimes came to light, she asked officers to bear in mind Jesse Earl when investigating Fuller's crimes because they were aware that he operated in Eastbourne at the time. The Jesse Earl case remains unsolved, though. No one has ever been arrested by Sussex police, but crucially, it does remain open. Miss Heater told the court that if there was any DNA matches, they would investigate further, but she told the inquest today that there are no active lines of inquiry in relation to Jesse Earl.
This has been a long time coming for the family.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. The family's lawyer told the inquest today that for the last 30 years they have been consumed with how they can put this right. Jesse's death wasn't treated as a murder investigation by Sussex police until the year 2000, some 11 years after her body was found, or a skeleton was found in shrubland near Eastbourne. For the family, they want to see this inquest rule that Jesse's death was an unlawful killing, but it's taken until now, 42 years on, for this inquest to even be held. Her parents are now in their 90s. Now, the coroner sympathised with them and said that the family have been victims of a substantial miscarriage of justice. He wanted to telegraph publicly that he agrees with the family lawyer's submission that it was an unlawful killing. However, the family are asking for an explicit reference in the coroner's conclusion that given the evidence, Jesse Earl was murdered. Now, that would be unheard of in coroner's courts. It's not up to a coroner to decide whether someone was murdered. However, tonight he is considering mentioning that in his conclusions as he writes them up, which he will deliver here tomorrow.
OK, Jo Caution, for now, thank you very much.
Members of the RMT union occupied the lobby of DP World's offices last night, protesting against the sacking of 800 Dover workers. DP World is the parent company of P&O Ferries. Demonstrators refused to leave until the company's management talked to them, but they were escorted out by police.
More than 8,000 food bank parcels were given to people in East Brighton in the year to March. Whitehawk Food Bank says the increase is partly due to rising debt. Trussell Trust Food Banks provided more than 2 million parcels last year, a 14% rise on pre-pandemic figures.
A consultation is asking if 3 grammar schools in Kent should become co-educational. Medway has 6 grammar schools with currently more places for girls than boys. Chatham, Fort Pitt and Holcombe would all become mixed schools under the plans.
More businesses are being asked to take on apprentices in Kent with a levy to help pay for them. The County Council says it has transferred more than £1 million to its apprenticeship fund, with almost 200 workers already benefiting. It wants to support 100 more. The government minister in charge of sending asylum seekers to Rwanda after they arrive on the southeast coast has been quizzed by MPs about how the controversial plan will work. Well, he told them he was confident it would deter some people from making the crossing from France, but it was clear some MPs felt many questions about the scheme still haven't been answered. Phil Hornby reports.
It's a vital new tool in the war against the evil people smugglers, the minister said, again and again. But what proof do you have it'll work, they wanted to know.
What modelling have you done then to actually give you the evidence base for this decision?
So this is a new and untested policy at this point in time. Well, there will be a deterrent effect. It is difficult to quantify that at this stage. You read conflicting media reports of individuals being interviewed, for example, by the media in Calais, some of whom say they're not going to make the journeys. Some say that they are still going to make those journeys.
He repeated the dangerous channel crossings must be stopped. Something must be done.
Doing nothing is not an option.
No one's
Inaction is
suggesting
not
it is,
acceptable.
Minister. I'm just trying to understand the basis of the decision that the government have made.
And I'd be delighted to hear an alternative. I mean, one of the things that I'm always frustrated by is the sort of criticism that we see and the lack of alternative that's put forward.
The Home Affairs Committee wanted detail. When will the first people be sent to Rwanda? How many will go? How will they be chosen? But the minister said revealing too many details now would help the people smugglers.
What we don't want to do is to not do anything that aids these evil criminal gangs to exploit vulnerable people. And it's right that we tread carefully in delivering the detail of the policy in a way that is sensitive to that and that doesn't support that sort of criminality.
He did say that people destined for Rwanda could be screened in Kent, but not necessarily detained.
There will be some people who will be perhaps at Manston but will not be detained. That's correct, isn't it? So they can...
As I've said, there are people who potentially would not be detained.
Right, so they could just disappear.
During the duration of that screening process.
Yeah,
we take case-by-case decisions,
right.
making sure that circumstances are properly reflected.
So they could disappear.
The committee were frustrated. Some of them wondered, is it that the government won't tell us more, or have they not worked it all out themselves yet? Phil Hornby, ITV News, Westminster.
Now you're watching ITV News in the Meridian region. Coming up.
Sussex artist Alison Lapper launches a project she hopes will help young people with mental health issues.
And today's rain has been but a blip in an otherwise fairly settled spell of weather. I'll be back later with the full forecast.
And you can find more on all of our stories today, of course, on our website. itv.com/meridian is the address. You can call us and don't forget to follow us on social media.
The government has announced plans to make e-scooters legal on public roads in the UK. A pilot rental scheme has been taking place in Canterbury to evaluate the safety of the electric vehicles.
But some critics insist they are hazards on the road and should not be fully legalised. Sarah Saunders reports on the pros and cons of the controversial new proposals.
They're incredibly cheap to use. It costs 12 to 13p to charge. It's great for the environment. This is the future of transport.
Stuart Montgomery opened the scooter shop in Brighton last year, confident that e-scooters will become an increasingly common form of transport. He welcomes government proposals to legalise and regulate their use on our roads.
I think it can only be a positive to actually have some legislation on these, because currently people are using them and they don't know where to use them. They're afraid if they use them on the road, they'll get caught by the police. So they use them on the pavements, which is actually the opposite of what people should be doing with these.
Despite concerns about accidents and deaths, a recent study by the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents suggested e-scooters are actually relatively safe compared with other forms of transport. But the charity Guide Dogs commissioned research into the dangers of a collision with the two-wheeled transport. And Laura Drew from Whitstable, who is registered blind, is very concerned about their use.
E-scooters are a hazard. E-scooters are dangerous. They're silent and dangerous because you can't hear them and I can't see them.
Now, the government has said it intends to legalise them on our streets. If that is going to happen, what do you think needs to be done?
There needs to be better regulations.
In Canterbury, rental e-scooters can be seen cruising around town already, as part of a government trial to collect safety data. Restrictions in place here offer some indication of what the future of legal e-scooter transport might look like.
To ride one of these, you have to be 18 years old and have a provisional licence, and it's fitted with lights and a bell, and crucially a speed limiter of 15 miles an hour. But legislators will also have to consider whether or not private users will need insurance if they want to ride one on the roads.
I've been in Sweden, they use them all the time in Sweden. You know, and I don't see why we haven't caught on here, really.
I think there should be limitations as to where they can be used.
If they wanted to travel, say, alternatively to a car, then it decreases sort of like the traffic on the roads.
The Transport Secretary has said if a new law can be introduced to legalise e-scooters, it will come hand in hand with a crackdown on non-compliant riders. Sarah Saunders, ITV News, Canterbury.
Next tonight, are our English laws in regard to weddings in need of modernisation? Some people think so and say they do not fit in with our multicultural society.
In the second report in our series on marriage this week, we've been looking at why rules that are 200 years old are holding couples back from having their ideal ceremony.
Well, some people spend years thinking their union is legally binding when actually it's not. Nick Smith reports on the calls for reform on how people tie the knot.
With summer on the horizon, many of the big wedding venues in the southeast, like the Grand Hotel in Brighton or Leeds Castle near Maidstone, are gearing up for a busy season. Locations such as these are described as approved venues. strictly regulated under English and Welsh law for civil or religious ceremonies, where couples must say specific vows under a roof in front of a registrar with the power to conduct a union. And that's all well and good for some couples, but it isn't for everyone. Jane and Brendan are humanists and are trying to plan a wedding perfectly suited to their shared beliefs.
We have a humanist celebrant and she actually gets to know the couple. The location is a beautiful place that we've chosen that means something to us, and we get a wedding that's tailored to us.
The problem is, this humanist ceremony won't be legally recognised, meaning they'll have to double up, paying hundreds of pounds for an extra civil ceremony at a registry office.
The civil ceremony itself has its restrictions, and those are the language that have to be used, where it has to be conducted, and who conducts it as well is very limited. And that doesn't fit with how we imagine the time we choose to commit to each other and make that statement in front of our friends and family. We want it to be personal to us, and you don't have that choice.
But the legal advisory body, the Law Commission, is currently consulting on whether to recommend the government changes the law to give couples the power to marry however and wherever they want. One charity promoting the institution of marriage claims it could considerably drive down the cost of weddings.
The Law Commission's proposals will allow people for the first time to get married anywhere they like. So it won't be licensed to the building, it'll be the person who registers the wedding. And we think that that's an excellent move, and especially if it makes weddings more accessible to people who don't want to spend a fortune. I hope that being able to get married outside of the monopoly of venues that there are at the moment will help more people to cut their costs.
There are also claims that our present marriage laws, rooted in largely Christian traditions, don't reflect multicultural Britain. Dr. Rajnara Akhtar recently co-led a study into modern marriage. She tells me couples from some minority communities feel penalised, as currently not all religious venues are granted the power to conduct legal weddings.
It becomes problematic where you have a couple who's entered into a ceremony of marriage that they believe is legally binding, but actually doesn't attract that legal recognition. Often that won't come to light until something has gone wrong. So that could be divorce, or it could be the death of one of the partners. If you have a plethora of wedding ceremonies that are not recognised legally, it is an issue that has to be taken on board by government and reform proposals implemented.
The Law Commission is set to announce recommendations on reforming marriage in July, and then it will be up to our lawmakers in government to decide if we stick with our traditions or modernise in the biggest shake-up to matrimony in centuries. Nick Smith, ITV News.
And more from our series exploring matters of marriage here tomorrow. Well, the ITV Evening News continues here with the national and international news. That's at 6:30 with the details. Charlene White.
Warnings of debt and destitution. 1.5 million households now have more money going out than coming in as the cost of living crisis forces us all to cut back. At 7 p.m, a special report on the hospices facing a staffing crisis. Rebecca Vardy defends accusations she leaked stories to the press, and
tonight's jackpot is an estimated £184 million.
Was it you? The search for the Euro Millions winner who scooped a record-breaking jackpot. Join us for those stories and much more at 6:30.
That coming up very shortly. Now, the Sussex artist and campaigner Alison Lapper has launched a project that she hopes will show young people how being creative can help with mental health issues.
Alison lost her only son Paris in 2019 after an accidental drug overdose. He was just 19 years old. She hopes to raise £50,000 to take the drug of art around the country. Here's Charlotte Wilkins.
We had a really lovely relationship because it was kind of him and I against the world at times. And we were really close.
She may be a talented artist, but Alison Lapper has always described her son Paris as her greatest work. But after an ongoing battle with his mental health, Paris died aged just 19 after an accidental drug overdose.
When he died, a bit of me died with him. And I know that that will never come back.
Alison says Paris didn't get the support he needed and is now launching a new project called The Drug of Art. She hopes to show young people through workshops and a podcast just how powerful art can be at helping to tackle mental health issues.
When I'm painting, I lose myself. You know, all the bits and pieces that I need to deal with, forget about them. Maybe it's about giving people an opportunity to go somewhere in their head that's safe as well, and that doesn't make them feel so lonely and lost.
The project is being launched in conjunction with photographer and director Rankin and contemporary visual artist Mark Quinn, who created the famous Trafalgar Square fourth plinth sculpture of Alison when she was heavily pregnant with Paris. Together they hope to raise £50,000 or more to reach young people across the country.
If we can stop somebody going down the same path that Paris and loads of other young people have ended up either, being very, very ill or killing themselves, it has to be a good thing that there's an alternative.
Alison says she won't let Paris's death be in vain.
If I'm honest, on a not such a good day, that's how I feel. My baby he's not with me anymore, and I miss him.
Charlotte Wilkins, ITV News, Worthing.
Wishing Alison all the best. And remember, this is Mental Health Awareness Week. And if you or someone you know is living with mental health issues and needs support, remember you can find information on our website, itv.com/Meridian. And there's also details too about ITV's mental wellness campaign. It's called Britain Get Talking.
Now, young people from across the southeast have been competing in a nationwide table cricket competition in Crawley. Schools from Sussex and Kent have been battling it out with Grange Park School in Sevenoaks making it to the finals at Lord's next month. The programme was designed by the Lord's Taverners.
Now, it's a version of cricket played on a table tennis table. Organisers say young people with severe physical or learning disabilities have limited opportunities to participate in sport, but say this event is a huge success.
Feels great. That means that you're not alone just to play, that you have loads of teammates to help you along the way. They're sort of like a family to me, and without them I wouldn't be here. I feel like everyone deserves a chance in the game. That when you're in part of something, it's like a good feeling to be a part of something.
You like that?
Yeah,
it's cricket. It's cricket.
Yeah, any kind of cricket.
Yeah, and they've got those little miniature, very cute bats. Yeah. Now, a group of friends from, I think that's what they're called, a group of friends from Sevenoaks in Kent are preparing for a 26-mile moonwalk in London this weekend in honour of their mums.
Well, on Saturday night, the team will join thousands of men and women, all dressed in brightly decorated bras, to raise money for breast cancer charity Walk the Walk. Catherine Walker has the details.
Walking around Rotham School in Sevenoaks in Kent, Nesta is getting in some last-minute training. This weekend, he'll be walking 26 miles to raise money for breast cancer, an issue that's close to his heart.
I'm doing that in memory of my mother, Evangelia, that passed away 12 years ago, and also for those people that have lost their lives in cancer or their loved ones because of cancer. So I'm doing in memory of my mum and all of those people too.
The moonwalk will take place on Saturday for the first time since the pandemic started. The nighttime fundraiser has been running for over 20 years and was founded by Nina to raise awareness of breast cancer.
Cancer patients have had an absolutely devastating time. You've got a massive increase on those being diagnosed with secondary cancers because of COVID, and so we're seeing demand for our grants is massively grown, and we just want to get back to some kind of level where we can be able to support that.
Celebrity ambassadors like presenter Tom Reed-Wilson hope the walk will raise over £3 million for breast cancer treatment, after enjoying some fun along the way.
There's an amazing sense of camaraderie between all of us. I mean, you walk in teams, but
it becomes a kind of heady melange in the end anyway. But we all sing, we do moon medleys because of the walk's title, and you'd be staggered by how many moon-centric songs there are.
But behind the singing is a serious message. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. And this weekend, each of the fundraisers from across the country hope they can raise money and awareness of the disease. Catherine Walker, ITV News.
And we wish them lots of luck, of course. Let's see how the weather is going to shape up for that kind of event. Philippa is in the studio. What have you got for us tonight? I mean, Gardens, we had a little bit of rain, which I guess is helpful if that's what you need,
yes,
but not great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the first useful rain, as we might say, that we've had for what feels like absolutely ages. So no doubt gardens and gardeners rejoicing everywhere today. But it is really just a blip in an otherwise fairly settled spell of weather.
So lots of rumours of a heat wave.
Well, I'm going to have to disappoint anyone that's hoping for one. I'm certainly not hoping for one. Yeah, a heat wave, it actually needs some very specific criteria. And whilst things will be warming up over the next few days, I don't think we'll quite make it. So the Met Office defines a heat wave as 3 consecutive days where the temperature in a given location reaches a certain threshold value. Let's take a look at this chart. Hopefully this will make things a little clearer. So here's the UK divided up into counties, each county colour-coded based on the temperature we'd have to reach to be defined as a heat wave. And here in the southeast, you can see we're red, some dark reds there. So at least 27 Celsius needed, possibly 28 for 3 consecutive days. Where's the heat coming from over the next few days? Well, it's coming from the near continent. So the jet stream's been across us today, indicated by the white arrows, bringing the rain. Over the next few days, that shifts northwards. You can see high pressure taking over, dragging up those orangey red colours from the near continent. I think we'll see low 20s, but it'll be a bit of a push to get a heat wave out of it.
OK, well, I've got a wedding to go to this weekend, so they were my reasons for establishing that.
I think it'll be all right.
It'll be all right. Yeah. Thank you for that, Pip. Well, let's get the forecast, whatever you might be doing over the next few days. Here she is, it's Pip.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
A largely settled picture in the weather over the next few days, then lots of dry weather on the cards, some lovely sunny spells, and I think tending to warm up as the days go by. So this is what's happening over the coming days. We've had a front clearing away southeastwards today, and then high pressure starts to build in. Just worth noting, a little feature running up from the near continent later on Sunday into Monday that could potentially bring a few thundery showers, but that is still a fair way off. And out there at the moment, it looks relatively quiet. We're just about losing the last of the day's rain, and behind it through this evening and tonight, it's set to be dry and clear. Underneath those clear skies, it will also be quite cool, and temperatures in some rural spots could get down to 3 or 4 Celsius by dawn, in turn giving rise to a few shallow patches of mist. But any mist soon dispersing first thing tomorrow. A beautiful start to our Thursday. Dry, plenty of sunshine, a bit of patchy cloud bubbling up into the afternoon, but staying dry and in the best of the sunshine, feeling pretty warm as well, with highs inland 18, perhaps locally 19 Celsius. These are your high tide times for tomorrow. Then for Brighton, they're just before 9 in the morning, just before 9:30 in the evening. And then beyond that, things look very quiet. Lots of dry weather, plenty of sunshine. Just that risk of a few thundery showers potentially later on Sunday into Monday. But you can see those temperatures back on the rise once more, heading up into the 20s once again. Bye-bye.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Does that class as barbecue weather?
Yeah.
I think it does.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I might
but
go there.
Unfortunately for us, we'll be at work.
Yeah, I'm thinking the weekend. I wasn't thinking now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I told you about wedding.
Oh, that's fair enough. That's it from us. The ITV Evening News, of course, continues with Charlene White.
Join Stacey for our late update. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.